Welcome to your bedtime escape. Tonight, we travel back in time to the cold, quiet lands of the ancient Vikings. So close your eyes, get comfortable, and let this Viking story lull you to sleep. Let's imagine what if you were born in Vikings family, where you wake before the sun, not because you want to, because the smoke in your lungs leaves you no choice. Your eyes sting as you open them. A thin layer of soot clings to the thatch above you. The beams of the roof, thick and sagging, stretch into the shadows like ribs of an ancient creature. The air is heavy, warm in patches, cold in others. You cough once, softly, careful not to disturb anyone. You are still half buried in the straw bed, your cloak bunched beneath your head. No pillow, no mattress, just old, flattened straw wrapped in sheepskin. Your back is sore from the uneven planks beneath you, your legs stiff from the cold. Your world, for the moment, is a haze of wool blankets, itchy tunics, the faint sour scent of last night's mead, and the low, steady breath of those sleeping around you. You shift gently, pulling your cloak tighter. It's early, too early, but the longhouse never really sleeps, not entirely. Somewhere, across the smoky gloom, you hear the bleating of a goat. Then a muffled thump. Someone stirs by the far hearth. The fire is nearly out, just a red-orange glow beneath gray ash. It crackles faintly, feeding on the last of the damp logs. The longhouse is long indeed. Narrow, wooden, low-ceilinged. Earth floor. Reed thatch roof. You share it with your kin, your livestock, your memory of warmth, and the soft stink of animal dung. Two oxen snort gently in the far corner, fenced in by a low wooden rail. Their breath steams in the cold. Nearby, three goats huddle for warmth. One of them stares at you, blinking slowly. The coals shift. A dull crack. A puff of smoke swirls toward you. You cough again. You try not to wake your younger brother curled beside you. He doesn't move. His mouth hangs open slightly. One leg is draped over yours. His hair smells of smoke, like everything else in this place. This is how every day begins. Choking, blinking, and cold. You finally sit up. The world spins slightly. You scratch the side of your head, rubbing grit from your temple. Then you look around, adjusting to the soft dark. There are 9 of you in here, not counting the animals. 2 old ones, 4 grown, 3 young, all scattered along the walls, rolled into cloaks and furs and whatever warmth they could find. No beds, just body heat and the ever-drifting smoke. The hearth is still warm enough to draw you near. You rise on stiff legs, moving slowly so your knees don't creak too loudly. You stretch, arch your back, and feel the rough wood of the ceiling close above you. The smoke hangs low, maybe a hand's width above your eyes. The roof has no chimney, only a small smoke hole at the very top, and it's never enough. You crouch beside the hearth, blowing softly into the embers. Red glows. A few sparks dance and fade. You add a fistful of dry moss, then thin splinters of pine. The fire awakens with a whisper. You hold your hands out to the first flickers of warmth. Your fingers, blue and stiff, begin to move again. There's a moment, brief and golden, when the fire catches. You can see the beams clearly now. The ribs of the house. The bundled herbs hanging in shadow. Your sister's face on the far bench. Eyes still shut, but moving beneath the lids. Outside, the wind sighs against the walls. You hear it whistle softly through a crack in the roof. Then rattle the door's iron latch. Cold air presses inward. It always wants in. You sigh quietly and rise to your feet. Time to begin. You open the front door with a grunt. It's heavier than it looks, swollen with dew and warped by years of weather. The iron ring creaks as you pull. Outside, the world is gray-blue. Mist curls around the bare trees. A blackbird calls once, sharp and alone. Your boots crunch on frost-hardened ground. The yard is small, enclosed by a waist-high fence. Mud and straw frozen into stiff shapes. You walk past the woodpile, past the sleeping hound, and toward the goat pen. You cluck your tongue softly. Up, you mutter. The goats stare. You feed them first. Always. Before breakfast. Before anything. They nuzzle toward you. Their breath smells like sour milk. You drop old hay into the trough and scratch one behind the ears. Its nose is crusted with ice. You're already shivering. Back inside, the others have started to stir. Back inside, the longhouse hums softly with breath and rustle. Your sister groans as she sits up, her blanket falling to her lap. Her hair is tangled. Her eyes are half-lidded. She reaches toward the fire without speaking. You hand her a pine splinter to feed it. She nods once. That's how mornings work here. Quiet, slow, cooperative. Words are rationed like grain. You only use them when necessary. The old man in the corner coughs. Then coughs again. His joints crack as he pulls himself upright. He's your grandfather, and he was once a warrior, or so he says. Now he tends to the fishing lines and mutters to himself in the dark. He scratches at the lice in his beard and grumbles toward the roof. Sky's white. Might snow. Might not. That's all he says. Your mother is already up. You can hear her grinding barley in the corner, stone against stone. It's rhythmic, ancient, like breathing. Breakfast will be thick and bland. Porridge, maybe. A crust of yesterday's bread softened in goat milk. If there's leftover fish, it will be cold and greasy, wrapped in a bit of cloth to keep the flies off, though in this season, the flies are long dead. You scrape some soot from the hearth edge and add another log. The flames leap up greedily. With a bit of warmth comes movement. One by one, the household wakes, stretching, groaning, scratching. There is no privacy, only habits that pretend. The chickens in the back room begin to cluck. You hear them flutter and peck. The longhouse, like a living body, breathes into motion. You dress quickly. Wool tunic, a thick leather belt, wool leggings tied with strips of cloth. Your cloak smells faintly of smoke, blood, and pine resin. It always does. You strap on your boots, stiff with last week's mud, and loop your knife to your belt. A small, simple blade, but sharp. By now, you've been awake nearly an hour. You fed the animals, stirred the fire, helped with the water buckets, said nothing more than 5 words. You step back outside. The village is waking, too. Smoke curls from rooftops. A dog barks once in the distance. You see a boy carrying a sack of dung toward the fields. His feet steam in the cold. The sun has not yet breached the trees, but the sky is pale now. Pigeons stir on the roof beams. A woman down the path is already hanging wet linens, her breath puffing in clouds. Everything smells of smoke and damp wool, and something faintly sour, like pickled fish or old cabbage. Your stomach tightens with hunger, but not urgently. You've learned to wait. You make your way to the stream. The path is slippery with frost. Your boots crunch and slip as you descend. The stream is narrow, shallow, icy. You cup your hands, fill them with freezing water, and splash your face. It hurts, but it wakes you fully, clears your sinuses, chills your skin until it tingles. You drink once, just enough to wet your throat. You stand there for a moment, watching the water trickle past. A thin layer of ice crusts the rocks at the edges. A bird pecks nearby, thin-legged, shivering. You think of the sea, not far from here. Just a few days' walk. You've never seen it, but you've heard it described. Endless water, salty air, boats like dragons. Maybe one day, you'll sail there. Maybe not. Back at the longhouse, breakfast is ready. The porridge is lukewarm and lumpy. You eat it from a shared wooden bowl, scooping with your fingers. No one complains. You chew slowly. Grain sticks between your teeth. Your younger brother whines about the cold. Your sister elbows him. Your grandfather burps and says nothing. The fire crackles. The chickens shuffle. A baby coughs from across the house. The rest of the day will be filled with chores, chopping firewood, mending a broken fence, scraping the inside of a sheep's stomach to use for storing curds. You'll help smoke fish, stir the fermentation pot, check for rats. In the afternoon, if there's time, you'll visit the smithy and help your cousin hammer out nails. And later, if the wind isn't too cruel, you might walk with your uncle to the edge of the woods to check the traps. Rabbits, if you're lucky. Wolves, if you're cursed. There's always something to be done. Something to be mended, carved, federals stirred, dug, stacked, cleaned, fetched, dried. This is life in a Viking longhouse. Not as a raider, but as a survivor. Not in saga, but in silence. Not in glory, but in routine. You breathe in the warm smoke again, rubbing your cracked hands together, listening to the familiar hum of your world as it slowly spins into another long, cold day. You spend the morning with the axe. The woodpile behind the longhouse is already half gone. Winter isn't kind to oak or to backs. The logs are cold and slick with frost. You wedge one onto the stump, grip the axe, and swing. Not too hard. You've learned that already. Let the weight do the work. The axe lands with a clean crack. The log splits with a sigh of cold air. You set the halves aside and reach for the next. This goes on for some time. The rhythm is comforting. Split stack. Split stack. Your breath fogs with each exhale. Your arms ache by the third row. But the ache is familiar, almost welcome. Your sister appears beside you, silent. She carries a bundle of kindling, her fingers red and raw. She doesn't speak, just dumps it onto the drying rack near the hearth and returns inside. Everyone has a job. No one waits for instructions. You pause for a moment, wiping your brow with a sleeve. The village smells faintly of pine sap and smoke. A child is crying somewhere down the path. A rooster crows for no good reason. You return to the woodpile. Later, you help your uncle with the fence. One of the goats escaped yesterday, again. This time, it climbed the compost heap and hopped over the rotting palisade. Your uncle says if it happens again, the gods can keep it. You both work in silence. He tightens the bindings. You drive stakes into the half-frozen ground. The fence leans like a drunk old man, but it holds, for now. While you work, he tells you about the time he saw a white bear near the fjord. As big as a boat, he says, with eyes like old bone. You're not sure if he's lying, but you nod anyway. Everyone here speaks in half-truths. Stories mix with memories. No one corrects each other. The gods don't like arrogance. You finish the last binding and pat the wood. Your hands are stiff. Your knuckles are cracked. You flex them slowly. It's barely midday. Inside, the longhouse is dim again. The smoke hangs heavy, less like a cloud, more like a curtain. Your eyes sting slightly, but you're used to it. You push the smoke aside with your hand as you walk through it. Your mother has begun spinning wool. The spindle turns slowly in her hands, the thread stretching thin, tightening. It looks like magic, but it's just patience. A neighbor has come by to trade. She brought dried fish and news. Someone in the next village fell through the ice. His sled sank. No sign of the horse. No one reacts much. People disappear all the time. Sometimes it's wolves. Sometimes hunger. Sometimes just bad luck. Your grandfather mutters something about cursed ice. He spits in the fire for luck. The neighbor leaves with a jar of thickened cream and a scowl. You don't ask questions. There's no room in your life for curiosity. Just tasks. Duties. Small victories. You take your place at the loom. It's a simple device, wooden frame, stretched threads, but it takes all your attention. The wool must be pulled evenly. No knots. No tears. A mistake now means a hole in your clothing later. You work for an hour, maybe two. Time is hard to track. There are no clocks. Only the slow movement of light through the cracks in the wood walls. Only the creak of the frame. The quiet scrape of your sister sharpening a bone needle. The occasional grunt from the goats in the back room. You think, for a moment, about leaving. About joining a raiding ship. About holding a sword instead of a needle. But then your mother glances at you. Just once, and you look back down. There is a ritual to everything. Before supper, your grandfather blesses the salt. He sprinkles it into the stew pot with his eyes closed. He whispers something too quiet to hear. Your mother touches the bowl with 2 fingers, then taps the rim of the hearth. You follow, because that's what you do. The gods aren't always watching, but someone might be. A neighbor, a spirit, an ancestor. The dead are close here. You eat quietly, seated on furs. The stew is fishy and thin, but hot. You dip a crust of bread and chew slowly. No one speaks. The only sound is chewing. The pop of a log. The wind pushing against the door. You clean your fingers on a scrap of cloth and lean back. The heat from the hearth touches your toes. Your shoulders are heavy. Your breath slows. Outside, the light is fading. Pale orange slipping into blue. Someone walks by on the path outside, their footsteps crunching in the frost. Your sister curls up near the wall, her blanket pulled to her chin. Your mother braids her hair in silence. Your grandfather sharpens his old axe, though he'll never lift it again. You pull your cloak around your shoulders and lie back onto the straw and wool mat. The roof above you is black with smoke and spiderwebs. You stare at it until your eyes begin to sting. You think, briefly, about tomorrow. And then you stop. Because there is no tomorrow in a Viking longhouse. There is only warmth or cold, food or hunger, work or stillness. You close your eyes, and the world grows quiet again. You dream of wolves. Not the kind that howl from the woods. Not even the kind that sometimes snatch a goat from the pen. These wolves are different. They walk on 2 legs. Their eyes burn like hot coals. Their hands are blackened with soot. They speak no words, just breathe, loud and long, like wind through old trees. You wake before dawn. The hearth has gone cold. The coals pulse faintly beneath ash. A child is snoring somewhere to your left. The goats rustle behind the inner wall, restless and musky. You sit up slowly, joints stiff from the chill, and pull your wool wrap tighter across your chest. Another day, another round of the same. Your mother is already awake. She moves like a shadow through the longhouse, placing new wood on the hearth. Her hair is unbound, gray strands mixed in with the red. She hums softly, no song, just breath. A rhythm. She doesn't greet you. She never does. In the longhouse, silence is not rude. It is rest. You help with the fire. She nods once in approval. The flame returns in quiet little gasps. It will warm the stew pot again soon. You were named after a forgotten uncle. He died at sea, or in battle, or from bad fish. No one remembers. But your name was his. That's how memory works here, not in facts, but in reuse. A name, a tool, a prayer. Even the goat pin belonged to someone long gone. When you pass your fingers over the wood, you're touching generations. You sometimes wonder what it would feel like to be new, to start something of your own. But such thoughts are indulgent. Dangerous, even. Vikings don't ask questions like that. Not out loud. Later that morning, the neighbor's boy comes to trade stories. He's barely older than you, but already has a knife of his own and 2 missing fingers. Fishbone, he shrugs when you ask. Snapped while gutting a cod. You sit outside the longhouse together, backs against the timber wall, watching smoke rise from the next roof over. He tells you someone's cow birthed twins with the same face. A bad omen. Someone else drowned a raven in a bowl of ale to keep the spirits calm. You don't know if any of it is true, but you listen. The boy leaves before midday, his boots loud on the frost. You feel a strange emptiness once he's gone. Not sadness, just stillness. Inside, your grandfather tells the same story again. It's about a ship, a storm, a god in the clouds with gold teeth and a sword that made thunder. He always tells it before the season turns cold. You've heard it so many times you could mouth the words. But you don't, because the story isn't for entertainment. It's for keeping. It holds memory, myth, warning, hope. A map of the soul passed down in fragments. Before the sun sets, you help wash the cooking tools in melted snow. Your fingers go numb almost instantly. The metal bowl bites your skin. Your sister scrubs with a bundle of dried herbs to mask the fish smell. You don't speak. You work. The silence between you is familiar, like an old blanket. A reminder that words are not always necessary. A reminder that sometimes survival is the only story worth telling. Tonight, your uncle sharpens your knife. He doesn't say why. He just beckons you over, lays the blade on a piece of hide, and begins the motion, slow, careful, steady. The scrape of stone against metal is almost soothing. You'll need this soon, he says. For what, you ask? He doesn't answer, just nods toward the goats. You look confused. He smiles faintly, in that way adults do when they know more than they'll tell. You don't press further. The longhouse grows quiet again. The hearth flickers low. Outside, snow begins to fall, light, barely there. You can hear it as a soft patter on the roof. The air smells like ash and fur. You lie down. The goat bleats once, softly. A baby stirs in someone's arms. Your mother hums again, just a note or two, as she folds wool cloth by the fire. You close your eyes. And again, the wolves return. Only this time, they keep their distance. Just watching. The days blur together. You wake. You stoke the fire. You clean the ash with a carved bone scoop. You fetch water from the stream. Break the ice with your fist. And carry it home in a skin bladder that leaks just enough to sting your thigh with cold. You eat the same gruel, barley, water, a pinch of salt if you're lucky. Sometimes there's dried fish. Sometimes not. Your older brother left last spring. He joined a cruise sailing west toward Ireland, or maybe south toward Francia. No one really knows. The men don't send word back unless they've become rich. Or dead. He gave you his belt before he left. It's too big, so you wrap it twice around your tunic. You wear it like armor, like a promise. Your father doesn't speak much. He works the nets, mends the thatch, sharpens tools. He has a way of moving that is both quiet and final, like he's always finishing something, even when starting it. He once told you a man shouldn't waste words on problems the gods already solved. You try to understand what that means. You're not sure yet, but you nod like you do. That's what children are for, nodding, working, listening, waiting. It's slaughter season. The smell arrives before the cold does. a thick iron scent in the air. The animals grow restless. The goats won't stop pacing. The chickens stop laying. You help build a small wooden rack with your uncle. He doesn't say what it's for, but you already know. You've seen it in winters past. The ropes, the bowls, the long, flat knife. The day it happens, your sister is told to sing outside. You stay inside, pretending to sleep. But you hear the bleeding, the hush, the sound the blood makes when it touches hot stones. That night, your longhouse smells rich with fat and smoke. Everyone eats well. A rare thing. Your mother passes you a piece of liver wrapped in bread. It's warm. She watches you eat it. Carefully, as if the way you chew might reveal something important. You nod your thanks. Quietly, she nods back. Words aren't needed. Time moves slowly here. The sun comes late and leaves early. Days vanish in dull light. Nights stretch long and deep. You measure time by the smell of the hearth, the weight of the wood pile, the shape of frost on the beams. There is no calendar, only rhythm. You don't know your exact age. You only know you are older than the baby, and younger than the girl who weaves beside the fire. And for now, that is enough. Your dreams change. They are no longer full of wolves. Now you dream of the sea, endless gray, like melted tin. You stand at the edge of a boat you've never seen before. A raven circles above. Someone behind you chants in a language you almost understand. You don't know what you're looking for, only that it's out there. And it's waiting. You wake to someone vomiting. Your little brother. His stomach turned after spoiled cheese. The longhouse stinks of bile and milk and ash. No one scolds him. Sickness is just part of life. Your mother wipes his mouth. You fetch snow to clean the floor. There are no doctors here. No magic cures. Only herbs, prayers, and heat. And sometimes, none of it works. Sometimes, people just fade. The next day, your grandfather dies. He does not cry out. He just stops moving. The others say the gods have taken him in peace. He lived long. Saw many winters. That's a good thing. You watch them wrap his body in wool. Place small trinkets in his hands. Whisper over him. You don't cry. You don't even feel much. Only something like hollowness. As if someone scooped a piece of the fire out of the hearth and left a cold patch behind. The gods will sort him now. That's what they say. They'll weigh his deeds, count his oaths, measure the strength of his death. You wonder what that feels like. To be measured, to be remembered, to be sent somewhere beyond the sea. Later, your uncle sits beside you. He hands you a carved piece of wood shaped like a horse. Yours now, he says. You ask if it was grandfather's. No, he says. Yours. Because you'll need to ride far someday. You look at the wooden horse. It's smooth, simple, quiet. Like most things here. Outside, snow begins to fall again. The longhouse grows warm from the cooking fat. A baby cries. A goat sneezes. The wind moans gently through the wall beams. You wrap yourself in wool and close your eyes. And this time, you don't dream. You simply rest. The snow has grown deeper. It muffles sound, dulls the world. The longhouse becomes a kind of cocoon, insulated, dim, pulsing with heat and breath. You barely see the sun now. It's there, somewhere, behind layers of cloud and cold. But it offers no warmth. Just pale light. Each morning, your fingers sting as you pull on your boots. The fur lining is damp from yesterday's steps. Your toes are red with chill. You rub them by the hearth, but they never feel truly warm anymore. Your chores change. You no longer chase chickens or fetch needles. Now, you gather firewood, split logs, scrub soot from pots. It's harder work. Your shoulders ache in the morning. You've begun to notice the way your father watches you now, not with criticism, but expectation, as if you're meant to become something. And the becoming has already begun. One evening, you're sent to sleep in the loft. The upper space above the fire, once reserved for elders or guests, is now your place. The straw bed is warmer here, but you still lie awake a long time, staring through the smoke that coils beneath the beams. You feel older, but not wiser, just heavier, like your body is no longer just yours. Like the longhouse itself is shaping you. Your father gives you a knife, not for ceremony, not for celebration. He simply says, you'll need it, and presses it into your palm. It's bone-handled, slightly chipped, sharpened with care. You nod. You don't ask what for. You already know. The blade isn't for battle. It's for use. For fish. For knots. For cutting hide and trimming bark. For surviving. One day, the longhouse goes silent. No shouting. No chores. No laughter. The fire burns low, and the doors stay closed. Your uncle has returned, but not whole. A wound in his shoulder, wrapped with wool. Eyes dark, sunken. He smells like salt and blood and mead. The men gather and speak in low voices. You aren't allowed near, but you listen. Pieces of words. Raids gone bad. Ships lost. A chieftain dead. And your brother's name. Not spoken with certainty. Only in the past tense. You know what that means. But no one will say it directly. Not yet. That night, your mother sings. Just a whisper. A half-song with no words. It's not meant to comfort. It's a spell. Ascending. A kind of folding away of grief so it doesn't spill over the floor. You lie awake, gripping the small wooden horse beneath your blanket. And for the first time, you wonder, what's out there? Past the fjord? Past the sea? What calls men to leave everything behind? Is it glory? Or is it just escape? The next morning, your father takes you into the woods. No one says where you're going. The snow crunches under your feet. Your breath clouds the air. He leads without speaking. Just a nod here. A gesture there. After an hour, you reach a clearing. It's quiet here. Snow still clings to the branches. A raven caws once and vanishes. He places a piece of fish on a flat rock. Give thanks, he says. You hesitate. He looks at you, not sternly, but deeply. Not to the gods. To the world. To the cold. To what lets us live. You kneel. You don't know the words. So you just whisper, thank you. And that is enough. You return home in silence. No one asks where you were. But something has changed. The next day, you're told to join the men on the fishing boat. You're handed a net. Not as a child, but as someone who is part of the work now. You cast your first net into the freezing water. You watch the sky for gulls. You pull the weight of the sea with aching hands. And when the fish come up, glistening, gasping, heavy, you do not feel joy. You feel steady, like you are beginning to understand the rhythm, the labor, the shape of life. That night, the longhouse is warmer than usual. Your mother gives you the end of the roasted meat. Your father pours you a small cup of mead. No words, just gestures. The way wolves nod at one another in the dusk. You fall asleep in the loft. The fire is low. The air is thick with smoke and memory. You hold the wooden horse in your hand. And for the first time in your life, you feel ready. Not for war, not for glory, just for tomorrow. And whatever it brings. You've heard his name before. Eirik Thorvaldsson. But you may know him by another name. Eirik the Red. Not because of his fury, though he had plenty of that. Not because of his politics, he had none. But because of his hair. A deep, ruddy mane that caught fire in the sun. A symbol of his wildness. His independence. And perhaps his doom. He was born in Norway. Beneath the granite cliffs of Jæren. A hard land. Wind-bitten. Frosted and raw. His father, Thorvald Asvaldsson, was exiled for manslaughter when Eirik was still a child. Murder ran in the family. They left Norway and sailed west, like so many outlaws did, to Iceland. A new frontier. Lawless, volcanic, and brutal. Where a man could carve out a piece of earth with axe and blood and call it home. They settled in the north, in a cold valley. Quiet for a time, until Thorvald died, and Eirik became head of the household. And, just like his father, trouble followed. Eirik married. He built a farm at Hakadal in the west. He had children, one of whom you may have heard of, Leif Erikson, the explorer who reached America. But before Leif could grow into a legend, his father had to survive his own storm. And that storm began with slaves. One winter, a landslide buried part of Eirik's land. His slaves, thrells, were responsible for a construction project near the slope. They were blamed for the disaster. Another farmer, Volthjof, saw it as a reason to settle an old grudge. Words were exchanged. Then weapons. Volthjof was killed. Eirik was charged with murder. Again, and in Icelandic law, that meant temporary banishment. 3 years. To leave the island. Or face full outlawry, where anyone could kill you without punishment. So Eirik packed up his ship, took his family, and sailed west, into the unknown. What he found was not empty. It was green. It was cold. It was massive, and it would become legend. He named it Greenland. Yes, he named it that to trick people into coming. That's not a myth, it's in the sagas themselves. Eirik, knowing he'd need settlers to survive and build something lasting, called the icy coast Greenland to make it sound inviting. And it worked. But first, he had to survive. 3 years in that frozen land. No towns, no ships nearby, just ice, wind, and the sea. He built a settlement in the fjords, what would later be called Brattle. He hunted seals, fished, trapped birds. He explored the inland ice. He buried comrades who didn't make it. And when his sentence ended, he returned to Iceland with stories, not of gold or conquest, but of opportunity. Hundreds followed him back to Greenland. Some died on the voyage. Some froze in the first winter, but others endured. They built farms, raised cattle, tended sheep. And Eirik, he ruled them not with a crown, but with respect. He had killed, yes, but he had also led. In time, his children would go further west. His son Leif would cross the sea to a new land. Vinland, perhaps Newfoundland, perhaps farther. But it all began with exile. A man cast out for bloodshed, who found a new world and gave it a name. Not all Vikings were warriors. Some were dreamers, builders, farmers. But Eirik the Red was all three. His life wasn't glorious. It was hard, cold, marked by loss. But it helped shape a bridge between Europe and the Americas, long before Columbus. And it reminds us, sometimes, the most important journeys begin with a door closing and a storm at your back. Let's move to the next segment. The past doesn't whisper, it waits. Beneath earth and sea, in fields and fjords, the Vikings left behind more than myth and saga. They left clues, not swords or horns, not dragon-proud ships crashing through storms, but quieter things. A stone carved with runes, a skeleton buried with a sword, face turned east, a nail rusted and bent, once part of a long-lost vessel, each a puzzle piece, each a mystery. And even now, we are still piecing them together, still listening. The runestones, messages from the dead. Imagine you're walking through a quiet meadow in Sweden. The grass moves softly in the wind. Birds call in the distance. And in the center of the field stands a stone, taller than a man, weathered by time. It's not just a stone. It's a runestone. And it's speaking, if you can understand it. Carved into the surface are runes. Old Norse letters. Twisted, angular, cryptic. Not just decorations. These are memorials. Messages to gods or family. Declarations of deeds. Requests for protection. There are thousands of these stones scattered across Scandinavia. One reads, Gunvor, daughter of Thridric, made this bridge in memory of her mother. May God help her soul. Another, Thorstein raised this stone for his friend Bjorn, who died far from home. They're personal, intimate, a glimpse into Viking emotion. They remind us, the Vikings mourned. They loved. They remembered. And they etched those feelings in stone for centuries to come. The ship burials, silent vessels for the afterlife. Beneath mounds of earth in Norway, there are ships, not moored in water, but buried deep underground. Some of the most striking Viking archaeological finds are these ship burials. Take the Oseberg ship, found in 1904. It held 2 women, possibly queens or priestesses, buried in regal splendor. Their ship, nearly 70 feet long, carved with animal heads, held sledges, tapestries, and carts. And then there's the Gokstad ship, found with a man in his 40s, perhaps a warrior, buried with weapons, beds, kitchenware, and 12 horses. Why ships? Because the sea was sacred. Because death, for the Vikings, was a journey. The dead needed transport, across the great river to the afterlife, whether Valhalla, Folkvanger, or somewhere else. And so they were given ships, not just symbols of wealth or power, but of passage. The skeletons, stories in the bones. Some Viking graves tell stranger stories. In England, in a place called Ridgeway Hill, archaeologists found a mass grave, 54 skeletons, all beheaded. No wounds on their bodies, but their skulls were piled nearby. Carbon dating placed them in the Viking Age. Perhaps captured raiders, punished invaders, or even executed mercenaries. Their bones don't answer, but they ask. In Greenland, too, Viking skeletons lie buried in frozen soil, remnants of the colonies Eirik the Red founded. Some show signs of malnutrition, arthritis, or disease. Quiet reminders that these were not invincible warriors, but people, cold, hungry, human. And in Iceland, one excavation found a woman buried with a silver Thor's hammer in one hand, and a Christian cross in the other. Faith in flux, a culture between worlds. The everyday relics, lost threads of life. Not all finds are dramatic. Some are simple, even boring. A wooden comb, a child's toy horse, carved from bone. A game board, its pieces scattered. These objects don't tell epic tales. They speak of routine, combing one's hair, teaching a child, playing a game in the firelight. They're humble relics, but they may be the most revealing, because they remind us that most Vikings were not warriors. They were farmers, fishermen, traders, mothers, children, and they lived full lives that left behind little traces, quiet echoes of warmth and work. The mystery of the Vinland map and the Norse in America. There's one final mystery. A map. The Vinland map, found in the 20th century, claims to show North America before Columbus, and it's labeled Vinland, the land Leif Erikson supposedly reached. For years, scholars debated, is it real? A forgery? A fragment of truth? And what about the Lance aux Meadows site in Newfoundland? The only confirmed Norse settlement in North America? Were there others? Did Vikings settle further inland? Why did they leave? There are no firm answers. Just sagas and soil. Iron nails and charcoal. A few buildings. A blacksmith's hearth. Whispers. The evidence doesn't shout. But it's there. Just quiet enough for you to drift into sleep. Still wondering. You awaken again, but not on the damp floor of a smoky longhouse. This time, you're on a carved wooden bed, raised above the ground. Beneath you, furs, soft, thick, and warm. You smell sweet birch smoke and roasting meat. And this time, you're not a servant. You're a Jarl's child, or perhaps the Jarl himself. Welcome to the other side of Viking life, the world of the elite. The Longhouse, a palace of power. From the outside, it's unassuming. A long, narrow building, roofed with turf, walls timbered and tarred. But inside, it is the center of everything. This is not just a house, it's the seat of power. At the center of the Longhouse burns a fire, always lit. The smoke curls upward, curling through slits in the roof. Around it sit benches and beds, storage chests and animal hides, all laid out with careful symmetry. To live here is to rule. The Jarl dispenses justice here, hears oaths, tells stories. Warriors pledge loyalty under this roof. Skalds sing sagas to honored guests. This is where politics and poetry, meat and memory, all meet. And at night, the entire household, family, retainers, servants, even animals, sleeps under the same roof. One fire, one lineage. Feasting is power. When the Jarl holds a feast, it is more than just food. It is a display, a political statement. Tables are loaded with roast lamb, fish caught from icy fjords, fresh bread baked in clay ovens, stews of root vegetables and wild herbs. Drinking horns overflow with mead and ale, passed from hand to hand. The Jarl sits at the high table. Beside him, honored warriors. Below, his household. At the door, servants rush with trays. Feasting is where alliances are made, where marriages are arranged, where favors are asked and debts are repaid. To be a Viking elite is to be generous, almost aggressively so. A good leader is one who gives. The feast shows not just wealth, but control, family, honor, and bloodlines. Viking society is built on kinship. Lineage matters more than laws. A man's reputation is his inheritance and his children's legacy. Marriage is rarely about love. It's about land, alliance, and honor debts. Brides are brought with dowries. Grooms offer gifts in return. Sometimes, multiple households live under one roof, bound by loyalty and need. Children are taught their ancestry early, to know who your grandfather was, what he conquered, what he lost. Reputation stretches across generations. An insult to your father is an insult to you. And vengeance, when necessary, is not just justified, it is expected. Clothing and display, the elite in silk and fur. If you are rich in the Viking Age, everyone knows it. Not because of castles, but because of how you dress. Silk from Byzantium, brooches from the British Isles, sashes dyed with rare blues and reds. Furs, fox, marten, bear, lined along cloaks and boots. Men wear rings on their arms to show loyalty or favor. Women wear heavy necklaces and pins of intricate design. Even your comb might be carved from walrus ivory. Even your shoes might be stitched with imported thread. Viking wealth is portable, worn, carried, shared. The Longhouse elite do not hide their power, they wear it openly. And every guest who enters can see, this is no mere warrior. This is a ruler, a provider, a patron of skalds and smiths, warriors and wives. From power to memory, how the elite became legend. After death, some Viking elites are burned in ships, others buried in mounds. But all are remembered. Skalds sing of their deeds. Stones are carved with their names. Sagas are woven, decades later, from the threads of their lives. And even if the details twist in retelling, what remains is legacy. To be a Viking elite is not just to live well. It is to be remembered. As the fire crackles low in the great longhouse, and the wind howls faintly beyond the timber walls, you, whether warrior, servant, or jarl, settle into your place. Because no matter your rank, the Viking world moves together, through feasts and funerals, sagas and silence, from cold fields to warm hearths. And now, with your head resting gently, your breath slowing, you sleep among the ancestors. So this is for today. Hope we will see you on our next video, and good night for now.